I never thought I would be called selfish for refusing to raise a child that doesn't even exist yet, but that's exactly how this whole nightmare started. I'm 25 years old. I live in my own house. I pay my own bills. I have a long-term partner, a full-time job, and a life that I've worked very hard to build. And apparently, according to my family, that makes me the perfect unpaid weekend nanny for my younger sister's future baby. My younger sister is 21 and pregnant with her first child. When she first told me, I congratulated her genuinely. I didn't jump up and down with excitement, but I was polite, supportive, and wished her well. What I didn't realize at the time was that she wasn't just sharing news. She was laying the groundwork for expectations she had already decided I would fulfill whether I agreed or not. A few weeks after the announcement, she casually brought it up during a family conversation. She said, very matter-of-factly, that once the baby was born, she and her boyfriend would need time to decompress from the stress of parenting. She explained that they planned to have cool-off weekends every single week, from Friday morning until Sunday evening, every weekend. And then she looked directly at me and said that my partner and I would be watching the baby during that time. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it sounded so ridiculous that my brain assumed she had to be joking. I said no. I didn't yell. I didn't lecture her. I just said nope, that's not happening. I figured that would be the end of it. I was wrong. She didn't laugh back. She immediately got defensive and accused me of not supporting her. She said family helps family. She said I should be grateful she trusted me with her child. She said I was already planning weekends away anyway, so what difference would it make? I told her again that I wasn't going to be a weekend parent to a baby I didn't choose to have. She stormed off, clearly angry, but I assumed she would eventually accept it. Instead, she doubled down. Every time I saw her, she brought it up again. Every time I said no. Each conversation ended the same way, with her calling me selfish and me reminding her that becoming a parent was her choice, not mine. The tension kept building, and I could feel something bigger coming. Yesterday, it finally exploded. I got a phone call from my mother in the middle of the day. I knew the second I saw her name on the screen that this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask about work. She went straight into it, calling me a self-centered bitch and accusing me of being selfish. She said she didn't raise me this way. She said I was abandoning my sister when she needed me most. I snapped. Not screaming, not crying, just very bluntly. I told her I was a grown woman with my own house and my own life. I told her that if I wanted to watch kids as a second job, I would have my own. I said I wasn't obligated to give up every weekend of my life, so my sister could take breaks from a responsibility she hadn't even started yet. My mother sputtered something about how horrible I was, then hung up on me. Within hours, my phone became unusable. Messages started pouring in. Calls. Missed calls. Notifications. My parents, extended family, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly very invested in my uterus-free weekends. I opened Facebook and immediately regretted it. Posts were being made about selfish daughters, about women who turn their backs on family, about how motherhood is sacred and how shameful it is to refuse to help. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew exactly who they were talking about. My inbox was flooded with messages telling me I should be ashamed of myself, that I would understand once I had kids, that I owed my sister this, that I was heartless. Some people were kinder, saying they were disappointed but hoping I'd come around. Others were outright cruel. The only people who were firmly on my side were my partner and one aunt. My partner didn't hesitate for a second. He said absolutely not. He reminded me that our weekends are our only real downtime and that neither of us signed up to raise someone else's child. Maya told me she was proud of me for setting boundaries, especially with a family that had never respected them. What made everything worse was that my mother knew exactly what my sister was asking. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a few hours of babysitting here and there. This was every weekend, indefinitely. And my mother supported it because she had done almost the exact same thing to me when I was younger. Growing up, I was the built-in help, the extra set of hands, the responsible one. When my sister was born, I was old enough to be useful. I babysat constantly. I gave up plans. I helped raise her. And in my mother's mind, that made this whole situation perfectly reasonable. She saw no issue with my sister expecting the same level of sacrifice from me now. The truth is, I've never had a good relationship with most of my family. I keep limited contact with my parents and older sister, maybe talking to them twice a month at most. The only people I've ever truly felt supported by were my youngest sister, my aunt, and my grandparents. Everyone else has always made it clear that my value came from what I could provide, not who I was. Sitting there, staring at my phone as it vibrated nonstop, I realized this wasn't really about babysitting. It was about control. It was about entitlement. It was about my family deciding that my time, my energy, and my life were resources they could allocate however they saw fit. And for the first time, I wasn't bending. By the end of the night, I turned my phone off completely. I sat on the couch with my partner, trying to calm down, but my chest felt tight. I knew this wasn't over. When families like mine don't get their way, they escalate. And I had a sinking feeling that my sister wasn't done trying to force me into the role she had already planned for me long before she ever got pregnant. The silence didn't last long. I woke up the next morning to the familiar buzz of my phone, even though I had sworn I wouldn't turn it back on yet. Curiosity got the better of me, and the moment I unlocked the screen, the anxiety came rushing back. More missed calls, more messages, more people who suddenly felt entitled to tell me how to live my life. I scrolled for a few seconds before stopping because I could already feel my blood pressure rising. My family wasn't asking me to reconsider. They were demanding obedience. My sister was the loudest of all. She sent paragraph after paragraph about how overwhelmed she already felt, how pregnancy was exhausting, how she deserved support, and how I was abandoning her before the baby had even arrived. She said she thought I loved her. She said she would never do this to me. That line actually made me laugh out loud because history said otherwise. Every time my family needed someone to step up, it was always me. And every time, they called it love instead of obligation. What really pushed me over the edge was the guilt-tripping disguised as concern. My mother started sending messages framed as advice. She told me I would regret this. She said family remembers who was there and who wasn't. She reminded me that I had been helped growing up, conveniently forgetting that the help I received came with strings attached and expectations of repayment that never expired. She told me that being part of a family meant sacrifice, as if sacrifice only ever flowed in one direction. Then came the public pressure. Someone tagged me directly in a post about selfish siblings. Another person commented under my photos about how sad it was that I hated children. I don't hate children. I just refuse to be forced into parenthood by someone else's poor planning. But nuance doesn't survive on social media, especially when a family narrative has already been chosen. My sister escalated again when she realized shaming wasn't working. She called me and left a voicemail that was dripping with fake sweetness. She said she had talked it over with her boyfriend, and they had come up with a compromise. She said they would only need me every weekend for the first year, until the baby got easier. As if that was somehow better. As if handing over every weekend of my life for a year was a reasonable concession. That voicemail made something click in my head. This wasn't about stress relief. This was about them wanting to keep living exactly the way they always had, just with a baby added into the mix. They weren't planning to adjust their lifestyle. They were planning to outsource the hard parts to me. And if I agreed even once, it would never stop. I called my sister back and told her no again. This time, I was calm. I told her I wasn't discussing it anymore. I told her to stop asking. I told her to stop involving other people. She exploded. She screamed that I was ruining her mental health. She accused me of thinking I was better than her. She said I owed her because I didn't have kids and she did. The entitlement in her voice was so blatant it was almost surreal. After that call, I blocked her number. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten it. I just did it. And the moment I did, the fallout got worse. My parents started calling my partner, demanding that he talk sense into me. When he refused, they accused him of controlling me and poisoning me against my family. It was insulting and manipulative, and it confirmed exactly why I had put distance between us in the first place. My youngest sister called me that night, crying. She said the house felt tense. She said our older sister was angry all the time and complaining about me nonstop. She asked if I really wasn't going to help with the baby at all. That conversation hurt more than the rest because she wasn't attacking me. She was genuinely confused. I explained gently that helping sometimes is different from giving up your life. I told her that love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. She went quiet for a long moment before saying she understood. That was when I realized something else. If I gave in now, I wouldn't just be hurting myself. I'd be reinforcing this cycle for the next generation. My youngest sister was watching how boundaries were treated. She was watching how guilt was used. And if I caved, the message would be clear. In this family, your needs don't matter if someone else shouts louder. A few days passed, and the messages slowed, but the tension stayed. My mother eventually called again, this time calmer, as if nothing had happened. She suggested we all sit down and talk it out. She said families don't block each other. She said this was getting out of hand. I told her that the only way it would stop escalating was if everyone accepted my answer. She sighed and said she hoped I'd come to my senses before the baby arrived. That night, my partner and I had a long conversation about the future, about boundaries, about what kind of life we wanted. He asked me a question that stuck with me. He asked what would happen if my sister decided she needed weekday help too, or overnight help, or financial help. He asked where it would end. I didn't have an answer, and that was the answer. A week later, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and freeing. I posted a single message on my social media. It wasn't angry. It wasn't detailed. I simply said that I loved my family, but I would not be providing full-time weekend childcare, and that my decision was final. I asked people to stop contacting me about it. Then I logged out. The backlash showed up through other channels. Emails. Messages to my partner. Phone calls from numbers I didn't recognize. But something had shifted inside me. Each attempt to pressure me felt weaker than the last. I wasn't arguing anymore. I wasn't defending myself. I was just done. What I didn't expect was how quiet things became once everyone realized I wouldn't budge. My sister stopped messaging. My parents stopped calling. The noise faded, leaving behind an uncomfortable silence that made it painfully clear how conditional their connection to me had been. In that silence, I finally had space to breathe. And I knew that when the baby arrived, the real test would come, because nothing exposes entitlement like reality. And I was no longer willing to sacrifice my peace to maintain an illusion of family harmony that had never truly included me. The baby arrived earlier than expected, and with it came the moment everyone had been waiting for, whether they admitted it or not. I found out through a mutual friend because my sister still had me blocked, which in itself spoke volumes. There were photos posted almost immediately. Hospital bracelets. Tiny fingers. Smiling parents pretending everything was perfect. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness looking at those pictures because I knew what was coming next even if they didn't. It took less than 48 hours. The first message didn't come directly from my sister. It came from my mother. She asked if I had seen the news. She said everyone was exhausted. She said my sister was overwhelmed and emotional, which was apparently my cue. She didn't outright ask me to come over, but the implication was thick. I replied with a short congratulations and nothing else. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, she asked if I could come by that weekend to help, just a little. I didn't respond right away. I sat with it. I noticed how my body reacted, the tightness in my chest, the familiar guilt trying to crawl back in. Then I remembered the months of harassment, the public shaming, the insults, the expectation that my life was less important because I didn't have children. I replied with a single sentence. I said I hoped they were all healthy, but my answer hadn't changed. That was the moment everything snapped. My sister unblocked me just long enough to send a voice message. She was crying, angry, exhausted, and furious all at once. She accused me of abandoning her at her lowest point. She said I was cruel. She said I would regret this forever. She said she hoped I never needed help from anyone. I listened to the whole thing without interrupting, then archived it. I didn't reply. I blocked her again. What surprised me most was how quickly the narrative shifted once reality set in. Suddenly, people who had been calling me selfish were quieter. The posts stopped. The messages slowed. It turns out that when there's an actual baby screaming at 3 a.m, there's less time to wage a moral crusade online. My parents stepped in to help, just as I knew they would. My mother took on the role she had been so eager to assign to me. My father started rearranging his schedule. And that's when the resentment started to leak through the cracks. Not mine, theirs. I heard through my aunt that my mother was exhausted, that she hadn't expected it to be this hard, that she didn't realize how demanding a newborn would be at her age. My aunt told me this without judgment, just observation. She also told me something else. She said my mother had finally admitted that she assumed I would eventually cave, that she never thought I would actually stand my ground. That admission hit harder than all the insults combined, because it confirmed what I had always suspected. My boundaries were never taken seriously. They were treated as temporary obstacles, not real limits. And the moment I proved they were real, the entire system had to recalibrate without me. Weeks passed, then months. My contact with my parents dropped to almost nothing. When we did speak, it was polite and shallow. No more demands. No more lectures. Just awkward small talk. My sister didn't reach out again. Not to apologize. Not to reconcile. I wasn't surprised. Accountability had never been her strength. What did surprise me was how much lighter my life felt without the constant pressure. My weekends were quiet, peaceful. My partner and I started making plans again without factoring in other people's emergencies. We traveled. We rested. We existed without guilt hanging over every free moment. One evening, my youngest sister came over. She sat across from me on the couch and told me that watching everything unfold had changed how she saw our family. She said she used to think love meant doing whatever people asked of you. She said now she wasn't so sure. I hugged her and told her that love doesn't demand self-destruction. That conversation alone made every uncomfortable moment worth it. I won't pretend there aren't moments when I feel sad. I grieve the family I wished I had. I grieve the version of my sister who might have respected me. But grief is different from regret. I don't regret my decision. Not for a second. Because for the first time in my life, I chose myself without apologizing for it. People like to say that family is everything. I don't believe that anymore. I believe respect is everything. I believe consent matters even within families. I believe that choosing not to become a parent also deserves respect, not punishment. And I believe that no one is obligated to give up their life so someone else can avoid the consequences of their own choices. I don't know what the future holds for my sister or her child. I hope they're okay. I genuinely do. But hope doesn't mean access. It doesn't mean sacrifice. And it doesn't mean erasing myself to keep other people comfortable. This experience taught me that boundaries don't ruin families. They reveal them. They show you who values you and who only values what you can provide. And once you see that clearly, there's no unseeing it. If you were in my position, would you have done the same thing, or would you have given in to keep the peace? Where do you draw the line between helping family and losing yourself in the process?